Hey, everybody, welcome to Live, EIS Live. We're so excited today. As you can see, I'm back in the studio today. I moved into the other big room. The other room last week had the skylights and everything. People have been commenting on that. So this is our California studio. Looking pretty cool, right? Yes, I can see Matt over there agreeing with me. So listen, we're so excited today. I have some friends that I've known for at least 25 years. 25 years, you stop counting and it just kind of goes into oblivion after that. So I'm super excited about having them today and lots to talk about. And I want you to stay tuned until the end of the broadcast today, because if you're thinking about backing out early, you're going to miss a huge announcement at the end of the show today. So make sure that you stick around. But right now, I want to introduce my co-host, as always, Vanessa. There she is right there.
Hi, Bill. How are you?
Good. And then there's Matt, too.
Hey, Bill, what's going on? I love that voice you made at the beginning. I love it. I love the energy.
Well, you made it right under the wire, buddy.
It was tight. Too tight for me.
Here, kind of racing home from work or something, kind of running into the house and dropping everything out of the van.
We're ready to go, Bill. We're ready to go.
Awesome. I'm excited. So anyway, I want to do a little brief introduction of Pepe and Anita before I have them pop on the screen. I've known these guys since, I don't know, like I said, about 25 years, but we've had interactions on I think every single level, as far as family, being friends, being in the same church. I was their counselor for a period of time. We had professional interactions. I would refer people over to Pepe because he is a previous OBGYN, and I would have clients that needed a doctor, and I would send them to him. And he would send people to me for counseling. And he even had I'm sure, Pepe, you could share that testimony in the time that you're sharing with us today about somebody that he had referred to me a while back. So we go way back on all these different levels. And now they are our newest EIS counselors. So I'm going to welcome Pepe and Anita Arrunategui.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Pepe. Hey, how are you guys?
Woo-hoo. Excited.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for asking me to be here.
Great.
And these guys now live in Florida. We used to live in New Jersey all together, and not all together. We didn't live in the same house, we lived in New Jersey. And they, it's like, huh?
The same hood.
Yes, in the same hood. It was definitely the hood too.
It was definitely the hood.
It was definitely the hood. Elizabeth, New Jersey is definitely the hood. If that ain't the hood, nothing's the hood. But we took off, moved to California, and then a few years later, they moved to Florida.
Wow.
And I think actually most of our counselors are now down in Florida. So we're really God's saying something about Florida.
Yeah.
Good weather. That's what he's saying.
I'm jealous.
Something in the water.
Yeah. Nice hands.
I think California, I think is a little bit better in terms of
Of course you do.
just a little bias,
A little bias.
Mhm.
But anyway, again, we chatted last night doing our little test run. And as always, we talked about an hour on our test run last night. Wish we could have recorded it and people could just be a fly on the wall to that conversation. But we're going to start repeating some of that stuff that we talked about last night. So I'm hoping you guys can kind of give us a little intro of your life kind of before we got together, before we knew one another.
Right.
And so it kind of set the stage for everything that happened after that.
Sure. I'm going to begin because the story begins with my dysfunctional upbringing. So I grew up in a very dysfunctional family in Brooklyn. I was number 6 of 7 kids, and there was a lot of craziness all the time. So on the day I turned 18, I had my duffel bag, my green backpack, and I said to myself when I opened that front door, I never have to deal with any craziness ever again, and closed the door and left. So I go off to school. I go off to nursing school thinking I'm free. And first year of nursing school in the cafeteria, and I had just like John, had my tray, had my food. I poked my friend who was walking with me, and I said, "Hey, he's cute. Let's go sit at his table." And the craziness came back. This time double.
The devil.
So a year later, we were married.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how it all started. So when I met Pepe, we ended up getting married. I had 3 stepchildren already, and I was all of 21. So I had a lot. A couple of years later, I had 2 children, and I was really, really lonely in my marriage, and I couldn't figure it out. Like, we thought we were getting along. We thought we had a good relationship. We thought our conversations were good. We thought a lot of stuff, but I kept saying, I'm lonely. Why am I so lonely? And I actually asked God one day. I was like, what's going on? Why am I so lonely? And immediately something said in the back of my head, he's having an affair. And I was like, what? So I went out to the living room and I was like, hey, are you having an affair? And his brown face turned white as a sheet. Didn't say a word. Every Fisher Price toy I could find was wailed at his head. I was so mad at him. I was so upset. I just couldn't believe that would happen. But as Bill said today in his daily, nothing happens in a vacuum. So it definitely was not all on him. But at the time, that's how I felt. I'm not going to downplay the ultimate betrayal in a marriage, but nothing happens in a vacuum. I came with all my baggage too. So after that, we decided that we should get a divorce. So we filed for a divorce. I was about 28 at the time, and I was like, yeah, freedom. This is going to be great. And a couple of days before the divorce, he asked me, can we not divorce? Could you just give me a second chance? So I said, all right, for the sake of my family, for the sake of all that, just cancel the divorce. And I gave him a second chance.
Didn't you have the papers all drawn up too, Anita?
All the papers were drawn up. I had already, I actually brought them to him to a restaurant over on Westfield Avenue. It's called the Midas Touch. And I had all the papers drawn up. Fine dining, right? $1.99. I brought the papers and I said, hey, listen, I love you so much. I want our family to be together, but you're really hurting us. You're really hurting me and you're hurting the kids. So you have a choice. You can either go to counseling or here's the divorce papers. And he chose the divorce papers. He just said, he just said that that was it. So he took the divorce papers with him. And there's something in me knew that night that was not the end. Something in me, God had given me some sense that this was not the end, but continue to work towards getting that divorce and just ending the whole thing because I felt like he was not the one. I had made a mistake, and let's just forget about this and move on. That was 20-something years ago, maybe 27 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. We're married 37 and a half. Yeah.
Well, before you sent me actually to Bill.
No, not till after.
After?
Yeah, I sent you after.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we didn't know Bill at the
Well, actually, I came from a very functional home.
time. Liar.
Yeah.
Well, you're the one exception in the world, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was raised by a single mother. My mother, an awesome woman, and dad left us when I was 6 years old. So I never knew this, but I had an orphan spirit. And sometimes I felt myself kind of depressed, but my compensation was achieving and getting approval for that. So I was an approval addict. And I had the dream of becoming a surgeon. My dream actually was to do surgery. And I came here to America, and when I met Anita, I was in actually a surgical residency. I was chief resident in surgery. And right around that time, my program closed suddenly, and I had to move somewhere else. I moved into OBGYN. So in OBGYN, I had some acquaintance there that become two. We work 24/7, and this terrible thing happened. And I came actually from a previous failure, so I was failing chronically, But I believe coping and hoping with a little side of denial, isn't it? So, okay, Anita, you send me to Bill.
No, not yet. Why don't you tell the story about all the guys that died?
Oh.
Sorry, I'm sorry to bring it up, but I think it's a good.
Well,
I think it's a good story.
Yeah, I the person that I had the affair with had somebody in his life, in her life. I'm sorry. And, short time before Anita met me, or we met together, this guy died.
He was like 40 something, had a massive heart attack. It was her husband actually.
Yeah.
And he died of a massive heart attack around the age of 40, 45.
And so after this person died, somebody else started coming to visit her, and I was making on calls 30 miles away. So I saw this situation and I didn't like it. So I moved out. I started living by myself. And the second person also died.
40 years old, massive heart attack. So she was like a spider woman.
But actually, when we met with Anita, somehow she conveyed something that got into my heart and start opening my heart. It says, Pepe, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. I didn't know how far from the truth I was, but the travel started there, the truth, and towards being authentic, about being free, and so.
Yeah, so then we got back together and started to work on the marriage and started to go to counseling. So I was going to Bill's associate for a while. I mean, I went to her for a couple of years, Jackie. So she worked with the ladies, Bill worked with the men in the church. So I spent hours with her, hours trying to heal all my stuff. I mean, every time I would drive up to her house, I used to tell her, I hate coming here because it's just like, so difficult to work on all your stuff. I mean, it's work. You have to do it. You have to get all that junk that you lived with all your life out, that you've hidden inside. You kind of just put it all down and you try to find ways, like workaround ways to live, because all that junk just keeps piling up down there. So it took her and me hours, and I mean hours and hours and hours of. I think I had the most hours of counseling of anyone that went to see her. I'm almost positive. And I would leave there literally drained out and have to take about a 3-hour nap when I got home, because that emotional stuff you don't feel when you're a kid, and all of a sudden you're going back there. You feel it the same way, but you have to feel in order to heal. That's what I did. So at one point, after she had worked alone with me, because that's kind of like the best way to work when you're working on marriages, is to work individually with each person, so that you get them to a point where you can bring them together and they can begin to understand at a better emotional level. Because face it, when you have these emotional problems when you're a kid, you stay that age emotionally. So like when I got married, yeah, I'm 21, but emotionally I was still 10 from all the stuff. He says he was 13.
Yeah.
I was probably around 10. So
emotionally.
Really a lot of stuff to work on. But anyway, so I was talking with Jackie and deciding some of the stuff that needed to heal in the marriage, things that my needs weren't being met and stuff like that. So Jackie said, it's time to pull out the trump card. We need Bill Hoffman in on this. So Pepe went to Bill Hoffman to start their counseling. So why don't you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Before you start, Pepe, let me just ask Matt and Vanessa if they have any questions right up until now.
I mean, how much time do we have? That's such an incredible story. I mean, I love to hear Anita, I totally relate to you when you talk about how tired you felt after sessions because of what you were feeling emotionally. Do you feel like, would you say, in your professional opinion, that if people don't go to EIS or people aren't getting help, they could be 50, 60 years old and still be 10 years old emotionally? Like it never, it's not like the more years that go by, you somewhat gradually progress. Do you think people, no matter how old they get, it's still, they're still from that area emotionally?
Well, I think you could, in some areas you could mature, you could figure things out and really touch the fire burnt and learn that way. I really think that those core issues of those things from when you're younger absolutely get stuck there. It's almost like a log jam, and you have to get the logs out of the way in order to let the flow come through. And so, yeah, there's a lot of 10-year-olds, 60-year-olds running around now because they've never got the healing. And that's never, we're a perfect example. It's never too late.
She said that I met her when she was 20 emotionally. I was 30 emotionally, But anyhow, Anita sent me to Bill.
I said, you need to go to sit in front of Bill and
I remember suit and tie, the doctor. I went to see Bill. And Bill is sitting, crossing his arms like this in his desk. And hi, I said, how you doing, Pepe? And he said, fine.
Fouled up, insecure, and wrong answer in front of Bill. Wrong answer.
But says, you are fine, why you are here? And okay, Bill proposed the APS for me. Okay, but I was in a box, a scientific box, that I didn't understand that, and I also didn't want to uncover my stuff.
Not only that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but not only that, when I first said I needed to go for counseling from all of my junk, he said, what? Counseling is for rich people with so much money, don't know what to do with their time. Like you just thought it's something you make up instead of something that, you have to work on. So sorry about that.
Yeah.
Well, I have some comments about that too later.
Oh, okay, great. We want to hear them, Bill.
Yeah.
We definitely
but in the few meetings that I had with Bill, I have to thank you, Bill. First of all, you made me realize I was not fine. Number two, I clearly remember somehow you showed me that my identity was not being a doctor. Mm-hmm. My identity was somewhere else, and I had to look for it. And thank God I found it. I believe so, and that's our continuous work individually in trying to become authentic people individually. And for us, that's the best prescription to achieve a good marriage.
Well, the one thing too, Pepe, is that when you say you had yourself in a scientific box, that's all you knew. In the APS, you basically, it wasn't just like whatever. You really repudiated. You didn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
It was like mumbo jumbo. You're just trying to pigeonhole me into something, and we do get that occasionally when people have that kind of viewpoint of what that is. But you found out that really, like what you said about finding your own identity was wrapped up in understanding yourself, basically kind of navigating through understanding your temperament, why you do things you did, why you think the way that you do, and basically breaking through the ego. Because like you said, being the surgeon, being the doctor was the whole deal, right? So as long as that's intact and we can keep it intact, like you said, you didn't want to really be exposed. As long as we can keep that ego intact, that ego persona intact, then we're fine.
Exactly.
We don't have to deal with anything.
But
exactly.
Yeah, but and we were also financially, we were wealthy at that time. We were pretty stable. You know, so I got it all, you know. But actually, you have to consider I came from an education that taught me about Freud, you know, sex is the engine of everything. Uh, Marx, you have to be like this, the oppressed, the oppressor, and so on and so forth. I was the victim, so I had to come out of there, and so many other ideas, you know, worldly ideas that I accept truth, you know.
Wow. Pepe, if I can interject, being, you know, coming from an area, because I remember telling Bill that I'll start counseling when I get rich, and at
Oh.
the time, and it's just I never forget telling him that. That was a great mindset.
You know, Matt.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So Pepe, like for a lot of people on this, that are watching right now, Anita obviously was going for hours and hours of counseling. She was totally immersed, and you going to Bill, it kind of sounds like at first you went, but you weren't excited to go. You weren't like an open book right away. What was that process of, I guess, peeling the layers back of the onion as you started to go to Bill? And when did you really start to, I guess, open up? Was it after a few sessions? Did it take a year, for you really to kind of get to these roots and past, I guess, the ego of going to a counselor in the first place?
Well, it's been, and I have uncovered layers, and I continue uncovering layers, like the layer of realizing that I was an approval addict. It's just recently uncovered.
Wow.
And the consequence was that I had to deliver at night, then I had 2-3 surgeries in the morning, then I had 30-40 patients in the afternoon, day and night, and continuous calls and so on and so forth. So I was absorbed into that. And okay, what a servant. Oh my goodness. I'm supine, by the way. I'm supine. Yeah. What a servant. But no, that servant had a purpose. Approval. I needed the approval that my dad never gave me. Okay. I was an awesome man. He was an artist. And he was a man who pretty much of a womanizer. But he when I went for money to take my test for the medical school, he said, "What do you go to medical?" So, and then when I became a doctor, he said, "Oh, my son," So it was the father issue really was heavy, but thank God, all that I worked that out, and this he actually worked in my lab for me liking science, and that was the basic thing, and also pretty much instilled in me the principles, not believe in anything, just being an atheist, So he was an atheist, and I was an atheist. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and during that time, he was a churchgoer. Because I was a counselor in the church at the time, and that's where I met them, was in the church.
Yeah, he had gotten saved after I took him back to retry the marriage again. After that, I realized, oh, there is a God, and began work.
Well, actually, and I think this is important. I was still an atheist when I started going to church with Anita, and I started paying attention to the teachings. But the most important thing that was an older gentleman, Ed Lowry, Mr. Lowry. He said white hair, and he will come every service and put his arms around me. Son, how are you? How are you feeling? How is this treating you? What are you doing? What are you going to do? Wow, that was, to me, that was so important. So start paying attention to the things of God. And I think if God would have not been in our marriage, we wouldn't be married. And we depend highly on God as well. We depend highly on God because our goal as a couple is to attain mutual freedom. In other words, I don't have to walk backwards or whatever difficult thing for her to love me. Sometimes she's not going to love God, and she knows that God loves her. We depend on God. So I love Anita with all my heart, but there are moments also I want to,
A couple.
I want not to love her. So, but then the love that I get. So that's, for us, that's a source of freedom. And the other thing is that we both aim to having an intimate relationship. I personally think that intimacy is devalued in society. Actually, if you look the Oxford Dictionary, intimacy, if you belong to a family group, intimacy, that family. But actually, for me, intimacy is such an important thing. It's such an important thing. It's being able to share our deepest thoughts, our deepest emotions, our desires. Taking that risk. And we are continuously working to be first intimate with God and then intimate with each other. And one thing that we know that there is that also doesn't work unless there is respect, trust, and love. And love sometimes goes up with respect. Very important, I think. And my mission in life is this lady, to serve this lady. So,
You got that, Matt?
what is it?
What'd you say?
Matt, you got that?
I got that, Bill. That's a nugget.
Roger that.
Vanessa,
Yeah.
you got anything right now?
I think my connection's a little unstable. That's why I wasn't unmuting myself. So I'm gonna stay quiet for a minute as I get to figure it out.
Yeah, I hear some kind of chopping noises going on there. I don't know if anybody else can hear that, but
Oh, you cannot hear that clearly?
Oh, Vanessa.
Oh.
Yeah.
well, what I was going to say too is that, of course at EIS, anybody can come for help, and the God reality, it's not a prerequisite for anybody. Nobody has to believe in God or anything like that. But as far as our individual testimonies, we share how God's worked in our lives, and Matt is very similar. In fact, he was a self-proclaimed atheist when he came to.
Oh, really?
I don't know whether he can hear or not. It sounds like somebody's eating nuts or something in the background.
Oh, there, Matt's gone.
Matt's gone.
I think it was actually Matt's.
Oh,
Like,
it was.
yeah.
Yeah, he got off. Yeah. Can you hear us, Vanessa?
Can you hear us, Vanessa?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think
can
it
you
was
hear me?
Matt's microphone
Okay,
or
I
something.
wasn't sure if that crackling noise was coming from me. That's why I was like, I'm not going to unmute myself. I'm not going to disrupt this. But I also agree. I was the same way. I was a self-proclaimed atheist as well. When Matt had introduced me to Bill, he actually was nervous, and I think warned Bill, don't talk about anything God related. I don't know how she's going to react. And I remember at the end of maybe our first or second session, I don't know if you pulled this out right away, Bill, you asked if you could pray for me. No one had ever done that before. And it was such a foreign concept to me, but also so just comforting to know that someone was looking out for me in that way and really cared. But I definitely can relate. That was not, the God component was not something at first that I wanted to immerse myself in whatsoever.
Yeah, but what happened is over time we found out that it's not some kind of religious concept, trying to be introduced and plugged in. It's just really getting in touch with the deepest part of yourself, like intimacy that Pepe was just sharing. You know, the intimacy factor is something that's the deepest part of who we are, and that's where God really dwells, is in our hearts. So if we don't get some kind of connection going there other than ourselves, we wind up with ego, as Pepe had mentioned before. I do a lot of dailies on stuff like that, like understanding the ego, the work of the ego, and the work of the inner man, and all that kind of stuff. So we can get God out of that mysterious box. Like we can't understand, like we're kind of afraid of it, like, because it stands for something that we just don't understand. And it usually stands for something that's not desirable because of our history, like religious experiences growing up and things of that nature, But anyway, on a tangent with that, but yeah, maybe you can share a little bit about that, Vanessa, because you and I have really definitely got on the same page as we started working together.
Yeah, I think for myself, I didn't ever really have a relationship with God. That just wasn't something that was a part of my household. I had gone through a significant amount of things in my life that I actually blamed God for. And I looked at God as kind of this dark cloud over my life, and that I was kind of just this bad hand in life, and he was to blame. So when I went to Bill, I really expressed that. I remember I went through journaling and just even having to forgive God. And with that came this whole new understanding of who God was and how that was going to play out in my life, because I learned that in order to know myself, I needed to find God first. I wasn't going to figure that out all on my own. And for myself, I was trying to tackle through life all by myself. I thought I had all the answers. And, Bill would ask me the question like, well, how has that gotten you this far? And I'm like, well, not great. I'm probably like on the verge of a breakdown like 24/7. So definitely needed to figure something out and change something in my life. And that element was God. So it's definitely been a journey in rewiring the way I look at it and just opening my heart up to that. And I'm just so grateful that Bill was able to kind of pour that into me and help guide me in that way. No one had ever done that really before.
Wow, that's awesome. I never guessed that. How long did you go to Bill for?
It's just over a year now, so fairly new in the journey.
Oh, goodness, awesome. What a great testimony. Thank you so much for sharing that. Wow.
Yes, and now she's the media czar and everything else that's going along with this package here. So, we keep her busy, but I don't think you're burning out anymore.
No, I'm just so grateful to be around you, Bill, and I feel like you're such a light in my life. So anytime I can get with you, he always makes the joke I get paid the big bucks, and I say the big bucks is time with Bill and everything that comes along with it. So I'm just so grateful, and I know that God put me in front of you for a reason. So thank you so much.
Yeah, we're definitely a mutual support society kind of a thing, and Pepe and Anita, maybe we can go back into that a little bit as far as how we moved forward.
Okay.
Because we did cross paths on every level, I think, in terms of, like I said earlier, being professionals, as families, as raising kids together, raising kids God's way kind of a thing. We have a lot of funny stories that we could share in our child rearing adventures.
Yes.
But, over the years, it was just kind of a crossover here and there in a lot of different ways, right?
Yeah, it was really funny. Not even funny. It just sometimes, like I said, now I pinch myself that we're here again. I can't even believe it. We're here again.
Hey,
Yeah.
Matt.
Hey, Matt.
I'm sorry. I have so many questions. Thank you, guys.
Miss you. Yeah, so we were just talking about how many times Bill's life has intertwined with our life through the years, and it's just been so crazy. But one of the first ones was at church. I think that was one of the first times that we met, you and Stephanie, and they had asked us to, we were sitting in rows near each other, and they asked us to pray for a little girl that was dying of a genetic disease. And so we turned around, and that was it. Our friendship just gelled right from that moment, and we grew to love so much Bill and Stephanie. I mean, to this day, we still talk, and we're both nurses. We got common, and we still talk. So it kind of started there, Bill. And I think that was probably 97, 96, I don't remember.
Yeah, and then you helped us out. We had some things we needed help with when we were struggling with our family.
Okay.
And so we did, and Rich Galloway was kind of the connection, I think, on a bunch of different levels too, somewhere along the line, with New York City Relief.
Right. Matthew's, we used to go over to Matthew's house to do stuff, and you guys were somehow involved, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to the mission together, Bill.
Yes, Pepe and I. Well, Pepe is from Peru, and had a friend who was running medical missions to Peru, and I was the missions pastor, as well as every other, except for the senior pastor title I had at the church. I was kind of the everything, the catch-all pastor, do everything pastor kind of thing.
And you did everything.
And I was the missions pastor at the time, and we got to lead 2 missions trips to Peru that were just awesome. And there's at least one person who became a pastor since we were there. I think that was the second trip, right, Pepe?
Yeah. So, they put a guy on a wheelchair because that happened in the hills in Peru, and the people built their houses on the hills, and they brought this guy, maybe 35, on a wheelchair, carrying the wheelchair, and Bill was in this little shanty. He was praying for hours with translator, and sometimes without translator. And this man had been bedridden for 6 months, and each leg was so swollen. And Bill pray for him. I don't know if you came to the next mission trip, Bill, but after 6 months, I came back to the place, and this guy came running.
Wow.
To meet us. Doctor, killed. And he was planning to become a pastor as well.
Yeah, so he's a pastor back there now,
yeah.
and it was Bill's prayers that got him out. So it was a big miracle that day.
And there was another girl also that something similar happened. I didn't witness that.
But you did, right, Bill?
Yep. Well, I mean, I think the lesson in that is that no matter who you are, whatever goods you think you're bringing to the table, it just doesn't matter. Like God wants to use us anywhere, whether it's in the business, whether it's in the shanty town in Peru, it doesn't make any difference, So what happened to me is I just went because I was the missions pastor in the church. But it was a medical mission, so I didn't have I'm not a doctor or anything, and I didn't have anything to do there, So I remember we set up it was the base of a shanty town and a hillside town in the dirt there in Peru. And they're all running around. You ever watch MASH or anything? Like you see these tents going up and stuff. That's what it was like.
It's okay.
Like all these doctors and nurses are running around setting up these tents, to have this medical mission set up for the day. And I'm standing there literally like, duh, like, what do I do? So I felt bad because nobody's like, oh no, we got it. So I'm just standing there like, so what am I doing here? I want to go home. So Pepe comes over and I said, Pepe, what am I supposed to be doing here? First of all, I can't speak Spanish. Secondly, I'm not a doctor or anything. And so he says, wait a second, Bill. And he comes over and he's got this little crinkly bag of Jesus Loves You buttons smile and balloons in it. And he hands them to me and he says, here, he says, you can pray for people and give them this stuff. So I'm like, great. So we looked around and there was a little, hey honey, my wife's here now. There's a little bench in the dirt. And so we dragged it over and I'm standing there and I'm like, okay, I got my bag of Jesus Loves You buttons and I got my balloons. Now what am I going to do? So everybody went to see a doctor and then they sent them to the prescription tent to get a prescription. And before they came to the prescription tent, they would see me. And that was the stopover. And I couldn't speak Spanish, but I started praying for people in English. And then basically God sent me a youth pastor, a young lady who was a youth pastor, and she translated for me. And so we prayed for everybody before they went to the tent for the prescriptions. Lots of them didn't need a prescription after we got done praying for them because they got healed. And one of them was a woman who came in a wheelchair. We prayed for her and she pushed her wheelchair away.
Wow.
And she waved to me and said goodbye, so. But I stood there in that spot and I didn't move probably from, I don't know, Pepe, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
It was a long day.
It was the most glorious experience I'd ever had, including the second time that I went too. But for me, it was such a huge lesson. So what? I was the missions pastor. I teach people this stuff, right? But I was learning, like, no matter where I go, no matter what I think I'm bringing to the table, as I said earlier, it doesn't matter because God can use me anywhere to do anything he wants. Like if he can use a donkey, he can definitely use me.
Amen.
And you know, Bill, remember I was telling you about this couple. I had a couple that came to my office. She had a simple gynecological issue. And I'm not going to mention names. And they were fighting each other. And I noticed during the interview. And so I sent this couple to Bill, you know, and well, 6 or 7 years later, she became pregnant. So the counseling have been good. so. But anyhow, this lady, I saw her check the pregnancy. The pregnancy was actually, the egg was being implanted very low in the uterus next to the cesarean section. Very high pregnancy. So I said, refer her to maternal and fetal maternal medicine, send her to abortion. And since I changed from being an atheist to God and believing in the sanctity of human life, you know, I spoke to the husband. The husband, doctor, we're not going to have an abortion. And I told him, you know, this is going to be tough, but let's do 1 week at a time. To make a long story short, baby Josiah was born with no defects. I had to perform a cesarean hysterectomy because the placenta was infiltrating the organs. But you know, and so the counseling was good.
Counseling works.
The counseling worked. And they are happily married until now, you know. I think they have some issues that.
Well, that's one example, just one example of all the crossovers that we had along the way, you know, which is awesome. I wanted, in our remaining time, I kind of want to fast forward a little bit and bring us up to date. Like, you know, you really.
Can I just interrupt you for just 1 second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Matt, can you just mute yourself? You're creating some sort of feedback. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Good.
That helped, yeah.
You lost.
Oh, he took it personally and left.
Lost him in the process. I tried to text him, but he wasn't seeing
I
it.
was
He was
texting
on
him
his
too, and he
phone.
couldn't see it.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted him to see it, but hopefully we'll get it back.
That's much better without that chunking, crunching sound. So anyway, so you guys, over the years, because while I was still there, I remember going to some of those meetings up in Mountainside with Linda and other people and things like that. And you really developed a heart for couples.
Yes.
And working with couples. And I mean, I think ultimately that's what's sent you down the road that you landed on now, ultimately going back to school and all that. So kind of take us from, you know, that pathway to now.
Yeah. So what we had found was, you know, a lot of times, like his patients, like he would see patients in his office and he would realize they were having some marital issues. So we had gone away one weekend to America ourselves, because one of the things that we had done after meeting with Bill is we kept tuning up our marriage. So because he works so many hours and so intense, every like 6 weeks we tried to go away, at least for a weekend, just to get away and to you know, refresh our marriage. And oftentimes we would go on married weekends and stuff. We realized, hey, why are we not marriages ourselves? So we just bought some videos and a bunch of books, and we would have people come over our house, one couple at a time, and just speak into their lives, give our testimony, see how what God had done for us. You know, he would be dead right now if Bill didn't intervene. You know, like he wouldn't even be here because it was just so bad. But because of the intervention, because of working the process, we're here today to be able to talk about it. And so we spoke into the couples' lives and we saw changes. Lots of couples going, wow, this is great. And we didn't even know all that Bill did because we weren't. So after that, we decided we didn't think we were ever going to go into counseling. Like that wasn't even on our mind. We just thought we'd minister to couples. So we get to Florida, and it just so happens because he moved to Florida, he was not able to work as a physician here because of some rules in New Jersey. So he was not able to practice here. I'm a nurse, and for 13 years did exactly what I hated to do. I hated every minute of what I did. There was no fulfillment, no joy, nothing. 13 years long. So he gets here, like, maybe we can become marriage counselors. Hey, why don't we do something? And we're like, well, what do we do? And so he said, let me give Bill a call and let me find out. He calls Bill. He's like, Bill, listen. Bill's like, hey, I'm busy now, but I'll get back to you. So Pepe's like, great. So Pepe had nothing to do because I was at the hospital working all day. And so he decided to look up a place in Sarasota. So he finds this place called NCCA in Sarasota, 15 minutes. So he goes there, he shows up at the door of NCCA, looks up, sees the sign, and all of a sudden he looks down. It's a text message from Bill Hoffman. Hey, NCCA is a good choice. Pepe was like, oh my gosh, this is where we're supposed to be. Opened the doors, went in, signed up, and I followed him. We quit our jobs. We gave up everything, our paychecks, and to be able to come and to be counselors because this is what we love to do.
But you know what? Let me mention something that is extremely important. We were believers in marriage counseling, I'm sorry. But now we believe in individual counseling,
Exactly.
the way you do it, and that's what we were talking about, the way to becoming authentic, the way towards self-awareness, and all the whole process. I think that's the proper way to go. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that's the downfall of a lot of marriage counseling and couples counseling.
Right.
Is it's attempted to be done with both people present from the onset. And unless you can get the people, and I know, Vanessa, you can definitely attest to this, unless, people work on themselves individually and work through their garbage. And I think, Vanessa, you and Matt would have been a really, unfortunately, a glaring example of that, of like, if he would just do this better and stop doing that, and he would have said the same thing. Well, if you just do more of this and less of that, then I would be okay. And it just doesn't work that way. Everybody has to take responsibility for themselves.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
think for myself, even like walking into starting the process with you, Bill, obviously I was introduced to it through Matt. So my biggest focus going into it was my relationship. I didn't even think about my own personal problems, which were obviously the catalyst for all the issues that were occurring in my relationship. So I kind of had it backwards. But yeah, definitely there was a lot of the blame game going on.
But yeah, but you've taken so much more responsibility for yourself. And I mean, I know that I've mentioned to you on more than one occasion, like, you got to make like he doesn't even exist to a certain degree, for you to be able to focus on the areas of your life that you'll be blind to. Like you said, you didn't even know because the presenting problems that you were experiencing all had something to do with your relationship.
Yeah, well, I would walk into our sessions and I would have like all these things that I wanted to talk about in regard to my relationship. And I remember you being like, hey, like, let's talk about you. And I was like, oh, that's a foreign concept. I don't know. Like, I always just looked at myself through the lens of Matt and I, as opposed to just myself. So that was definitely an interesting journey to go on, but it's been the most fruitful one because I'm able to kind of look at myself and see, because all the way I'm acting in my relationship comes down to the things that I've gone through and my root systems and all of those things. So being able to tap into that personally has obviously translated well into my relationship, but also in my relationship with myself, which I've learned is the most important.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So now you guys are officially on board with EIS.
Yes, I am.
Yes.
We're so thankful.
Thank
We're
you.
so thankful. I can't even thank you enough.
We're excited.
It feels so excited.
Yeah.
I love to we love to be with the people and talking and sharing into their lives. And I just really am. I can't believe I spent 13 years doing what I hated. And now I've spent, 13 weeks doing what I love. I just love what I do in here. So, yeah.
Well,
And
and your writing too, Anita, your dailies that have been showing up have just been really, really good.
thank you, Bill.
Keep
So
that up.
good.
We talked about that last night, and Pepe, hopefully you can, come on board and write a bunch of those too. Because you have so much rich experience to draw from as well, and people sink their teeth into that kind of experience. Anita, the stuff that you've been writing about your past, people can really relate to those things, And then Pepe, I think having such an aversion to the APS in the beginning,
Yes.
you're a temperament counselor.
Crazy, Bill.
Yeah.
That's just crazy.
Well, at that moment when you proposed that, I didn't know I was body, soul, and spirit.
Mhm.
I was just a piece of body. That's it.
Mhm.
I mean, and intellect. That's it. But
Yeah.
APS is a tremendous reflection of the fundamental of a person. In the area similar to the. So I'm very happy. The more tests I perform, and it's amazing
It's
how
amazing.
it is.
It's amazing.
Mhm.
It's amazing.
And we are very happy, and it's amazing because now we are close friends with the Arnolds, who are the creators and the guys who unveiled this stuff.
Yeah, so we're enjoying this journey more than any journey we've ever been
So
on.
we are blessed.
And last thing I want to say is that because now we're we're speaking into other people, we need our lives to reflect what we're telling people.
Exactly.
We're growing closer, we're growing more intimate, we're having those crucial conversations that before we were like, talk about it tomorrow. No, we're talking about it now, we're getting things done. We just cannot believe the journey that we're on. So we really are so grateful, beyond belief.
We start doing your book night by night, chapter by chapter, and we review books and we pray together, we share stuff. It's fascinating. We are really, we got a sense of purpose in that.
A big sense of purpose, yeah. So thank
No,
you.
you guys are avid participants in the process and proponents of the process now for sure.
For sure, yes.
Yeah. Well, and everything that we talked about was really a part of the formulation of that process all the way those years back, all on everybody's part, like all the pieces that we've talked about have just formed and shaped the process over the years. I didn't even know that until a couple of years ago when it really came to me that, wait a minute, this is a bona fide process, and these are the pieces of it
Right.
that if people will follow that, then they can actually get somewhere. Like they can come out of where they've been and what brought them to counseling in the first place and move into a brand new place in their lives. And you guys are an example of that from start to finish.
Exactly. And I think the book is genius. When I first picked it up and read it, I just felt it was genius. Like, wow, this is it. This is the process. I just can't, and it came out the same time we started. So it was perfect for us. It was like, sometimes I just want to share, and I think I shared it in one of my dailies, but oftentimes, you young guys all come out and say, I've done I've messed up the years of how they word it, but it's like, no, you're only 23. The best is yet to come. You've got a whole life ahead. Yeah, you're going to go through trials and things like that, but there's so much out there. There's so much to live for. There's so much opportunities. And definitely when you go through the process, the opportunities open up because all that free and all that stuff just gets cleared away. And you feel that you're open to whatever it is that's going to. So
That's not a prerequisite, and it doesn't always happen. But if you're willing, if you're a willing participant in life, that can happen to you, And I was just still working on my testimony at 23 out here as a drunken bum, as you know. But others like Matt and Vanessa, who are, 20, 22, 23. Vanessa's only 20, by the way. You probably thought she was much older than that.
wow.
Much more mature than that. But she's only 20, and we started, you were just 19. And I was so blessed, that I have a 19-year-old who's willing to listen to a 60-something-year-old guy, like working with her and connecting with her and helping her to grow and become who she is. What a blessing to be able to cross over the generations like that.
Yeah, it is a blessing.
I don't know if you get the sense, but I got a couple of young guys that 28, 23, and they are thinking, I want to do this. I want to know the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm amazed because I learned that in all ages.
Yeah, I never would have wanted to listen to anybody my age back then.
No, me neither.
Not in a million years.
No.
Vanessa, what's that like?
Yeah.
Well, I related, Anita, to what you said. Like, I got to a point where I was almost like dreading like what was to come next, because I was living in these like vicious cycles, and it was just almost exhausting thinking about the future. But I also knew at the same time that like, hey, I'm young, like this isn't how I should be feeling. And I kind of got to like a breaking point. And I think the point when I met Bill, it was like I was ready to take whatever advice I possibly could. I didn't really care who it came from. Obviously, it ended up coming from the best, and I am biased, but I was just desperate for change because I was living in some pretty dark stuff. So I realized it almost out of I was desperate, I would say. That's where that came from.
Oh, so that's the answer. She'd take anything. Well, that's my answer. I should have known.
That's not to say that I didn't put up a fight. Like Matt was like, "Hey, I think this is a great idea." I was like, this is gonna be really awkward. Like, I don't know. And then Bill was like very scary to me at first, but it's just his nature. He's very like cut and dry, which I need. But at first, I was like, "Does he like me? Like, what's happening here?"
Yeah, I've had a few scary Bill moments myself. I'll tell you. A couple of really good.
We'll save that for another time.
We'll talk offline.
Well, thank you guys for coming on today. This has been really great. I look forward to, there's so much more to come. We're just beginning, really. And I do want to encourage anybody of any age, if you're coming around and you're getting your test done, if you want to, kind of have that same experience of having a lot of wealth of knowledge and experience in our age group, being able to speak into your life. I know that Pepe and Anita can relate across the board too, just to anybody who's going to come, to them for counseling. So I definitely invite you to select them when you go on to EIS. I think I do have the banner up of EIS .co right now. If you want to go, you can appoint with anybody, you're welcome to do that. Well, now I do want to make the big announcement for next week. Not that this hasn't been big today, but next week I'm so excited to announce that Danica Patrick is going to be with us, and we're going to have a pretty intense talk with her on life, business, everything in between. I'm so excited. I really love her. She's just a bundle of energy. I don't know how she gets her energy, but we're going to be talking about that. She's an entrepreneur. She's very successful. Obviously the winningest female race car driver in history, and a bunch of other accolades and things that we're going to be talking about. One of the things I asked her that we talk about would be the fact that she is a successful entrepreneur. Since our target audience here is basically everybody in the business who is an entrepreneur. So I'm sure everybody's going to want to be hearing from her as we get together next week. So looking forward to that. So Annette, anything to close us out?
No, just do you want to do a shameless plug for the process?
Shameless plug. How could I forget?
Process.
There it is.
Okay. Get it.
It's available on Amazon, on Kindle, on Audible, and paperback. As you see here, it's also available on BillHoffman.com. That's bill-hoffman.com. And Pepe, my friend Pepe, did the final audit of the translated version in Spanish, which is available as an ebook and on that BillHoffman.com site. And I know I plugged this before, but I think it's a great book for anybody and everybody. Is PTSD by Walker.
Yeah.
Everybody is traumatized, believe it or not, from your childhood, one way or the other, whether it was that you didn't receive enough love, or there's divorce in your family, or anything else that happened where your needs were not met. That's the key phrase. When needs aren't met, growing up as children, the basic needs, even as kids, you're going to come up and grow up in a state of trauma. And you're going to be looking at those needs met when you become an adult. And that's why a lot of our relationships as adults go awry. Even in businesses, we talk about this all the time in the sense that, I know I'm going off a little bit on a tangent, but even as people grow up and they go and get jobs in the corporate environment, they look at their bosses as parents, and they're like the dysfunctional kids.
Right.
Grow up in their dysfunctional homes, and the only thing they have to help them with that is an HR department. And that doesn't work very well. I mean, it's just there to manage people, right? So organizations like the Pappalardo organization have incorporated EIS as their exclusive agent to be able to help all of their people to actually grow up and do their adulting trip in a very healthy way by everything that we talked about today, by uncovering all these things from our past, dealing with them effectively, and then being a good candidate to grow and not have our identity be found in our jobs or in our titles or in how much money we're making or any of those things. So it's a great book to couple with the process and all the other books that we recommend. So yay. So excited. Yeah. Thank you everybody again for being here today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Everybody disconnect with Pepe and Anita through EIS.co.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We will see you all next week for another live with Annika Patrick.
Yeah, say bye to Matt. Take care and thanks.
Yes, I will.
Bye
Love
now.
you all. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.